I like the idea of the weighted student staffing. I think a lot of the things that I've read over the last year or so have seemed to indicate that smaller class sizes, the ability of teachers to have fewer students seems to work out pretty well, especially in the more economically disadvantaged schools. So I think I like that idea. I would be curious to see, I would like to, one of the things I would like to do, and maybe I'm too ambitious here, maybe I'm a little naive, I don't know, but I have this feeling that we could go out and we could talk to a whole bunch of teachers, whether they're all from the same school or from a collection of schools, and talk about this weighted student staffing. Those who have had experience with it. Has it worked for them? Does it seem to, how can it be improved? What, is a 1-to-1 student ratio, is that the most ideal? I don't know, probably not. It's not the most efficient. I would be curious to get a lot of feedback on that and see where it goes, because off the top of my head and the things I've read, I think that a weighted student staffing model has a lot of value. It has a lot of merit with where it's going with things. So I would be in favor of sticking with that and then trying to figure out other ways that meld with that could be effective. I have a friend who's on the administration side who works in the distance learning area of CMS. And she was talking to me a little bit about this online learning and how there's all these misconceptions about what online learning is. And that CMS is starting to push this hybrid model of a bit of online learning and some in-classroom learning and some of the traditional things. And I think there's a lot of alternative methods that we could reach students, especially some of our more challenged students or even economically disadvantaged students, through some of these non-traditional ways. And we're not talking about the students going to stay home and sit in their jammies all day while they're looking at a computer screen to do a class. They're still going to go someplace and they're going to interact with people, but we got a lot of technology that might be available there that we might reach students that might be otherwise difficult to reach. And you could better utilize, potentially, your teaching resources when you do that. So I think there's not a simple answer, unfortunately, or at least I'm not giving a simple answer. But I think there's a variety of ways that we can approach that to get a good student ratio to reach as many students as we can.
You talked about the weighted student staffing refers to teacher resources. What about material resources? Do you think, should there be a differentiation in how material resources are distributed?
That, I think, is something that merits a whole heck of a lot of study. I'm a technology person, so one might think that I think everybody should get an electronic tablet and that should be all the things. I don't think I completely agree with that, because I think there are downsides to that. I think traditional books, traditional resources, our libraries, our media specialists, there are some advantages to that. Before I came to Charlotte, I worked for a year in Columbus Public Schools up in Ohio. I was in network tech. We were tasked with putting computers in all sorts of classrooms. They had gotten grants, they'd gotten a lot of money and funding, and they took a bunch of teachers and made them computer specialists, found all this software that they thought would fit into the curriculum. We were going to put 5 or 6 computers in every classroom, and then we're going to network all those, and in 10 years, we're going to have the world's smartest kids. I don't think that ever happened, because we haven't heard news about Columbus Public Schools being that way. Just throwing those resources at people isn't always going to be our best way of going about that. So I think it's trying to figure out how we're best going to go. And I think it's going to be, there's not a standardized approach. And I'm one of these guys that is not a completely standardized kind of person. So it may be that this 3rd grade teacher over in this school wants to use something a little bit more electronic. Or this 3rd grade teacher in another school is very, very happy using a traditional textbook of some sort. And I think that if we can allow them to have these options, then we can do that a little bit better. And the other side of that is we know that, we can sit back and we know that student A is going to learn viscerally. We know that student B learns really well watching. We know that student C learns really well by doing and writing. We know that we have these different modalities. Teachers also teach differently too. So I think if we allow our teachers to teach what their strengths are and then find out ways that we can match those students up with those strengths, which can get complicated, I realize that, then I think we have these opportunities to get to that ultimate goal, which is to get them through a high school graduation.